Welcome to the Strong for Performance podcast, where we share wisdom and practical tips to help you grow stronger in all areas of your life. I'm your host, Meredith Bell. I interview experts who offer real-world experiences that you can apply to your own journey. If you enjoy my podcast, be sure to subscribe and rate it on your favorite podcast platform. Welcome to the Strong for Performance podcast. I'm Meredith Bell, your host, and I am committed to interviewing guests who will inspire and challenge you. And if you enjoy my show, be sure to rate and review it on your favorite platform. This podcast is brought to you by my company, Performance Support Systems. We publish software tools and books for improving the way people communicate with each other at work. You can learn more at growstrongleaders.com. And today I am really excited and so looking forward to speaking with my guest, Carl Ficks. Carl, welcome to my show.
Thank you, Meredith. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be here with you.
Oh, I'm just so looking forward to our conversation. Before we jump in, though, I want to introduce you to my listeners. Carl is the founder of No Surrender LLC, and he helps busy professionals reclaim their wellness. His Fix system is a proven roadmap for endurance athletes and weekend warriors alike. His weekly LinkedIn posts and biweekly newspaper columns, both titled The Friday Fix. That's a tongue twister, Carl.
Yes.
The Friday Fix provide strategies, tools, and inspiration to stay resourceful and resilient. And I highly recommend them. Carl is a wonderful writer. He's very conversational and real in the ideas that he shares and just the stories that he tells. So, Carl, it's so interesting. I want to start with your career as an attorney for 30 years. So tell us a little bit about that journey through your law career, and then what inspired you to look at getting more fit yourself and then start a business where you help other people do that.
Sure. And again, thanks so much for having me on. I passed the bar in 1988 and I joined a small law firm, and it was a litigation-based practice. It's something that I wanted to do. I knew in law school that I wanted to be a so-called litigator. I mean, you really have two sides of the ledger. You have litigation, you have transactional. I found that the litigation side was something that I was very passionate about. It got the adrenaline going. I played sports as a youth. I played them in college, and I played them in high school. I played them in college. And frankly, being in the courtroom most clearly mimicked athletic competition. So it's something I enjoyed and something I did for quite a long time. And in about 2013, I decided to take a detour from the practice of law, and I went the non-attorney route, and I ran a foundation of a local hospital for a few years. So I spent some time in the world of philanthropy, and we had some great successes, and I did what I could there. And I then had a hankering to get back in the law. So I returned to my law firm in 2017, and I picked up pretty much where I left off. But during all the years of my litigation practice, Meredith, I just found that staying in shape and exercising just got me through some very long days and some very long weeks. And it allowed me to, again, be more resilient for things that came my way, especially when you're in court. You can anticipate all you want, but things come at you at a high speed, and you have to be flexible, among other things. And I just found the wellness principles and staying in shape carried over and allowed me, I think, to be more successful as a trial attorney and as a fundraiser at the foundation.
So you had this habit through your career. I was just curious if you had I know you were the athlete for a long time. So did you just carry over that, or was there a period when you really weren't active and you realized I need to pick that back up again?
Excellent question. The first few years of practice, I was 24/7 on the practice of law, and I neglected my personal health. And it wasn't nothing nefarious. It was just I was very busy. The first 4 or 5 years of the practice of law are really, really important. You learn your good habits and you learn your bad habits. So I was deeply embedded in the practice and really ignoring my personal health, 10, 12-hour days. And I like this metaphor, I was taking better care of my car than my body. As a young lawyer, I never had a car in law school until my third year of law school. So when I got out, I bought a used car, and then 2 years into practice, I had enough for a new car. Bought that new car in 1990 and took better care of that than my body. I was the guy cleaning the rims of my new car with a toothbrush while working 12 hours a day and eating fettuccine Alfredo at 10 at night and going to bed at 10:30. And I realized it was not sustainable. So I started to pay more attention and got back in the wellness game in the early 90s.
Well, I know you've worked with attorneys, and now you really are broadening to work with any busy professional and help them in getting back into the same routine. What are some of the objections you hear from people about making the time or taking the time to focus on their own health and fitness?
The biggest objection is time. It's obviously finite, and everybody is very busy, especially in the world we live in now with cell phones and texting. It really is 24/7. I remember, as I'm sure you do, the days when you could type in an email if you were taking a vacation saying, I will be away the week of July 5th without access to email. You really can't type that in with a straight face today, unless you're want to go cave exploring. We are always on 24/7. So there's some anxiety over, well, how can I take 1/2 hour for myself to do this? Because I am in service to my clients or my customers. But how do I do this? So the biggest objection is a time issue. And I'd say another objection is, well, I've been there, done that, but how can I ever get out of this hole I've dug myself in? And people need affirmation and validation. So you can show through word and deed that it is, in fact, possible.
Yeah, those are both really important points. And I'm guessing a lot of times people just feel overwhelmed at the idea of starting. If they haven't been doing anything, what do you recommend for them to do in terms of initial steps so they don't feel like they have failed before they ever get started?
Okay, that's a great question. And what I'll do is I'll draw a parallel with your book, the Strong for Performance book. You, in your chapter 5, you note the classic 3 steps for mastering new skills. Your first step is to focus. And you say, identify the one thing that trips you up. So in my system, the first step really is to formulate a goal. I think if you formulate a goal, then you've got something that is obtainable. Everybody in the business world is measured by a metric of some sort. So what is a metric but a goal? So adopt the metric that's in your business life to your personal life. And I think if you can focus, again, one of your classic 3 steps by formulating a goal, then you at least can have a place to start and a place to look forward to. So I think that's a good way to again, get out of the gates, is to formulate a goal.
Mm-hmm. And so with that goal, do you recommend making it a small one initially to help them achieve some early successes, or what would be an example of if someone were coming to you and just feeling like, I need help, I'm just so stressed out all the time and I need some relief. What's something I could do? Where would you help them start?
When I've presented at various CLE seminars, continuing legal ed seminars, and other spots, and I have a PowerPoint. And under the Formulate the Goal, I do say start small. And I have a screenshot. My PowerPoint, there's not a lot of text. It's just kind of placeholders. My screenshot for starting small is a picture of Mount Everest. And I say, you really don't want to start by trying to climb Mount Everest. It will not end well. So just start small, however you want to start small. And I'll share this anecdote that I got out of Runner's World. There was a 65-year-old gentleman in Georgia. He was a 2.5 pack a day smoker. And he was a little fed up with that. So what he started to do is run to his mailbox. And the first time he said he was huffing and puffing and wanted to throw up. He then went to the telephone pole. He then went to a tree down the street. He then went to a local park, and he became an ultramarathoner. Ultramarathoner being defined as anyone who runs further than the marathon distance. And he said, and I love this quote, he said, "It's not about the speed. It's just being out there. Slow as I go, I'm faster than my sofa." This guy started.
That's great.
And that's from Runner's World. So this guy started small. He said, I'm going to run to my mailbox. When I got back in the game in the early 90s, I could not run 2 miles without stopping. And, I had my little pity party. I got over that pretty fast. And you'll see the incremental progress. And it's no different than in business. You have a project, you have a date that it's due, and you just systematically march towards that date. And instead of trying to do it all the night before, it's not going to work. So 100% on the goal setting, start small. And it's okay too, to dream a little. It's in fact helpful. Have an audacious goal if you want, and then work towards it. It's very satisfying.
Well, it's one thing to set a goal and that get started with it. But as you know, and from reading my book, but also your own experience, it's very easy to get sidetracked or get derailed because your old habit wants to override the new way of doing it. I always like to say it's sort of like you've already got this established pattern like a superhighway, and now you want to start something new. And that's like trying to drive on a gravel road or a dirt road. It's bumpy, it's uncomfortable, and it's very tempting to go back over to the old way. So what do you recommend to people to stay on track so that they don't get derailed and then give up?
Well, again, I'm gonna reference your book, Meredith. In chapter 7, you talk about the importance of accountability. And you say it's one of the most important drivers in performance improvement. And there are various ways to hold yourself accountable when you start this journey. One of them is to train or exercise with a friend or multiple friends for a lot of reasons. There's a fitness app called Strava. It's got millions of users. And Strava recently reported that people in groups exercise 10% longer. And if you bike or run in pairs, you can add 20%, 21% more distance to how far you bike or how far you run. So groups are helpful because they not only increase your fitness, but they do hold you accountable. If you have a date with a friend to meet them at the high school track, to walk 2 miles around the track, if you're meeting at 6 a.m, you don't want to let your friend down. So, you've got to get up and you've got to go meet your friend. And that's very helpful. So the accountability thing, and there's various ways to do that too. A date, if you put a date on the calendar for your goal, that is another accountability thing. I mean, that's every business does that. Somebody will say to their direct reports, I need this by X date. Well, there's a reason for that because they do need it. And then you work towards that goal. It's no different in fitness. So I think we can get derailed quite easily. So guardrails are good. And I think a guardrail is find a friend. You also talk in your book about belief. You said a community creates belief. And the community, the fitness community, does that as well. You're with a like-minded person. You believe that you can do it. It's helpful. It'll boost your self-confidence.
What was the name of that app again? Would you spell it?
Sure, Strava, Strava. It's a
V as in
very
Victor.
popular, V as in Victor, S as in Sam, Strava. It's a very popular fitness app. And Strava, in fact, tracks so many things, Meredith. Some might say it's Orwellian. I happen to like Strava, but they can actually peg based on activity when people give up on their New Year's resolutions. It's fascinating stuff. Many times it's inside of 6 weeks from January 1st.
Oh, interesting.
So your point, you can get derailed and just give up because you get frustrated.
Well, when you are working with someone just in terms of this wellness, what are the different components? Obviously, exercise would be one. Do you also, look at what they're eating and, as far as consuming and that sort of thing?
Yeah, but disclaimer, I'm not a nutritionist. What I do share is what has worked for me over the years. There are a lot of drinks that people consume while they're running or riding or hiking. Many of them are loaded with high fructose corn syrup, and that's just not good stuff. So you could tweak here, say, this has worked for me. You may want to try that. Or, good old fashioned water. That's helpful. I've tapped nutritionists over the course of time. Years ago, I was kind of plateaued on some of my training, and I reached out to a nutritionist, and she had me keep a food log for a week or two, and then we tweaked it. I worked with a coach on a couple of years ago on CrossFit, and he identified my lack of protein. He said, you just need to up your protein, and the day of a race, take in a little more protein. So little tweaks here and there, but without a doubt. And it's really caloric intake versus caloric burn. So,
well, let's look at when somebody is just starting. Let's just say they've been neglecting this. Do you recommend they invest in any equipment, or what is it that you think is best for them? A good way for them to start? What tools, if any, do they need?
I just think the first and foremost, the biggest tool, frankly, is some drive and some determination. You don't need fancy equipment. There are exercises that I do, these things called box jumps, where literally you jump from the ground up onto a box. And that could be a milk crate. And, Peloton is the rage. It's a wonderful machine, and everybody's got them. You couldn't get them during the pandemic. The price point is pretty high for those things, but people love them. Do you need a Peloton? Well, if that's what you want, that's fine. But the local high school track is free, and you can meet a friend, and you have a pair of sneakers, and you just walk around the track. I do stair jumps, literally from the ground up to the first step and then down again. So there are a lot of things, and you'll find in local parks too, they have a lot of stations that you can use. If you want a sit-up bench, you'll find one in the local park. So there's not a huge investment. Frankly, that's one of the beauties of running, is just putting on shoes and going. And there's not a lot of cost involved in that. So I don't think you need fancy equipment. A lot of people buy treadmills and they become spots to hang clothes. So you got to think through that investment.
Well, as I'm thinking about what we're discussing here, such a huge part of this is a person's belief about what's possible or not possible for them. So if I came to you and I said, Carl, what you're saying makes sense. I just don't have time. Someone who's got a family and a job and other commitments. What do you recommend as far as helping them carve out some time for this in addition to everything else they're doing?
Sure. So on the steps, after you formulate a goal, you need to institute a plan, and the timing is part of that plan. It's the analogy is a flight plan. The carriers, the air carriers, they file flight plans because that's how they navigate around the country. So you got to have a plan. And when you do that, it's okay to be selfish. You can have a little me time. When I worked with that coach on the CrossFit, way before it became trendy, he gave me 15 to 20-minute workouts. And I distinctly remember, this is 10 plus years ago, saying to him, 20-minute workout, that's it? And he said, by the end of this workout, you'll be crying for your mother. You will be in pain. And sure, he was right. So there are 15 or 20-minute workouts that you can do, but it's helpful, I think, to schedule it. No different than a Zoom call. It's okay to schedule a little time for yourself. And the other thing too is I'm a big believer, it works for me, may not work for everybody, to work out in the morning, because then your day can build off of that. And we all know in business, it's not unique to the legal profession, that the day can go sideways pretty fast. So if you get up and do your workout, and again, I'm a morning person, so it works for me, you own that. That's yours, Meredith. Nobody can take that from you. So I'm a big believer in that. And do it in the morning, and then you're on your way to work, and whatever happens, happens, but you've got that time. So I think it's okay to be a little selfish. And frankly, as a busy professional, I don't think a half hour is really being selfish. You're not taking a 7-day junket to Vegas. All you're doing is taking 1/2 hour for yourself. And there's ways to minimize it too. You know, I've been a member of a gym for certain reasons. They have certain equipment that I wanted, but that adds time on either end. So if you really have a half hour and that's it, then put on some shoes and take a 1/2 hour walk from your house. Then there's no commute to any gym or any track. So I just think in the grand scheme of things, it's okay to give yourself a half hour.
Well, and even to feel like you could break that up if you wanted to, but I'm with you. I have experimented with different activities in the morning and then doing my exercising, which might involve walking around the neighborhood or else doing yoga or Pilates, just, here at my house. But I have found first thing before I even have my cup of coffee, which is saying a lot, if I go ahead and get my exercise in, then I feel really good and I can, focus attention on other things. It sort of gets the body and the mind moving. And I enjoy that feeling after I've had that. And I'm not talking, exerting. It's not quite like the 20-minute workout you were saying your CrossFit guy made you go through. You don't have to have that extreme of a workout to benefit. Right?
No. In fact, I read recently a study, a university in France found that 15 minutes of light exercise was better for you than 15 minutes of just simply relaxing. So even it doesn't have to be heavy duty. I've also found, Meredith, in the for what it's worth category, such clarity of thought when I work out in the morning that carries over to my work day. There was a joke. I would go into my partner's office and I'd say, hey, I have an idea. And he would say, oh, so you worked out this morning. It just became common knowledge. And one of my former colleagues from the hospital, she's now with another organization. She'd text me and say, are you going riding tomorrow? And I'd say, yes. And she said, I need an idea. This is what we're doing. And I need to name it something. And I write back and I say, I'll have 3 ideas for you tomorrow. And I go off and I ride and I come up with these ideas. I just find it's such clarity of thought. I don't ride with earbuds. I don't listen to music. I think it's unsafe, number one, but number two, I can't find that clarity that I can when I'm just focusing on what I'm doing. So I just find, and I've actually pulled over on my bike and pecked out notes in the notes section of my iPhone. I do carry the iPhone for safety reasons. It's not playing anything, but I have these ideas and I have to pull over, because if I don't, I'll lose them. So I just find incredible clarity of thought. And again, it sets the compass for my day.
You know, that is so cool that you mentioned, not listening to music, because I find that same thing, Carl. And I want to, bring this up for my listeners too. For people that are high achievers, like I am, always feeling like, oh, I got to be learning, I've got to be absorbing. And I'll play a podcast maybe while I'm, doing some exercises. But if instead I allow myself to just have a quiet mind and focus on the exercise itself, that is when it opens the door to getting these creative ideas like you're talking about. Because if you're filling your head with either music or a podcast or somebody else, going into your head while you're trying to work out, you don't have that space for the creativity that could come if you just allowed yourself to do the one thing and let your mind play with whatever comes into it.
Right. I can't agree with you more. I've never run with earbuds or music. I enjoy hearing the footfall or whatever you might hear on your run or your ride. You might hear a babbling brook that you never knew existed. You're not going to hear that if you're plugged in. And again, this 24/7 world, I'm a big fan of Kenny Chesney. He has a song called Noise, and it's just noise. We're bombarded with noise everywhere. Notifications on the phone. Everything's gonging and pinging and ringing. And it's just nice, again, to take that half hour or even that 20 minutes to just shut out the noise and kind of decompress. And then you get that clarity of thought.
Yeah, I really want to encourage my listeners to be thinking about what might they do to structure their day, their time, so that they have this opportunity for quiet and for moving. It sounds like you're not as concerned about what kind of movement people make, but just to find something that you're willing to do consistently.
Right. I mean, I have a brother-in-law. I have multiple brother-in-laws, but one of them is quite the fitness buff, and he will work out a lot. But he'll also, if he goes to a store, he'll park his car as far away from the store as possible, the furthest parking spot. It's just one of his habits. And there could be nobody in the parking lot, and he will take the furthest spot, and that forces him to walk the furthest distance to the store. It's just something that he does. I have a younger brother. He used to work out at a gym, and they had 2 floors, and he always laughed when he saw people taking the elevator up to the 2nd floor to start their workout. And he said to me once, he said, "You'd think they'd want to take the stairs." Yeah. So there's just little habits. No, I'm a big believer in simply moving, movement. If I'm sure, pre-pandemic, you traveled a lot. And so you're in an airport, instead of sitting around on your iPhone reading nonsense, walk. I mean, airports are great places to walk. Not only do you see a lot of interesting people, but you're getting exercise and you don't even know it. If you look at your iPhone on the health part of it, you could walk 3 miles in an airport and not even know it. And so if you got a layover in Atlanta, we've all been stuck in Atlanta for hours, go out for a walk. And you don't have to go outside, just stay in the terminals. And so little things like that, it's just movement. I'm just a big believer in movement.
Well, the other thing that I remembered, I think you had written this, or maybe I heard you say it, that getting fit is a marathon and not a sprint. So talk about the distinction you're making there between those two.
Sure. Things take time. I mean, in the legal profession, it takes a while to gain a book of business. No different in other businesses where you accumulate a customer list, and these things take time. They're not going to happen overnight. Dorothy clicked her heels and she was in Kansas, but that was the movies. That doesn't happen in business or real life or in fitness. I've given the example right before I went to the hospital in 2013. My last trial before I did that was in New York in 2012. And that was for an accident, a barge accident on the Hudson River that occurred in 2004. So that was 8 years, Meredith. That's a long time. And that's just really illustrative of some things. They take a long time. So if you say, gosh, I'd really love to run the New York City Marathon, well, that's an audacious goal, and that's a good one. You're not going to be able to train for 1 month and do that. It's going to take a little more time. So you can, if you want to sprint, but I think the marathon distance is really a metaphor for life. And there's also a lot of lessons there, like flexibility is one of them. You could train for a marathon in optimum weather conditions, and the morning of the marathon, it could be raining horizontally. So how do you react to that? It's no different than if you're giving a sales presentation and the tech floor falls out from under you. How do you deal with that? You've got to be flexible. So there's a lot of little life lessons buried in these things that you can apply to your business life.
Yes. So talk about what kind of services you offer these days. If somebody felt like, man, maybe I need to talk to Carl, he could help me with getting back into shape. Talk about the services you provide.
Sure. So there's one-on-one coaching. If somebody needs some help with the formulating the goal and instituting the plan and carrying through with the plan, I can do that. I also speak to larger groups instead of I love one-to-one, but I could do one-to-many and do some training where, lunch and learns, for instance. Those are helpful. A lot of business folks will bring in people to speak to their teams. And then they find 45 minutes or an hour is a nice little chunk of time, and just give some strategies for people to stay resilient. Just a little takeaway. And that was frankly the genesis for my Friday Fix. It's obviously a pun on words, but it's just I try to give one little nugget of wisdom that may help somebody, even one person, kind of get through the week. One of my recent posts was the courage to continue, and that's a Winston Churchill quote. It's really the courage to continue that counts. And in that post, I detailed some of my failures that I've learned from. And really, it's the courage to continue that counts. How do you deal with that? So again, the one-to-many. I love to speak to groups. I loved when I was in court, and I love to speak to groups. So, there's that piece of it as well. And as I mentioned, I've done some seminars, continuing legal education for lawyers. So I can do that as well.
Great. So, Carl, tell people where they can learn more about your services, read your blog, read your articles, so that they can have a regular dose of your insights and wisdom, but also find out how they might learn more about working with you.
Sure. So my website is Carl Ficks, CarlFicks.com. And I've got something on the website that I'd love to offer to your audience and your community. And it's 10 steps to getting back in the game. And these are 10 steps that have worked for me over the years. And I would invite your audience to be curious. Maybe one or two would work. Maybe all of them would work. But they can find that at carlficks.com/free.
Free. So, okay.
carlficks.com/free. I'm also on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect with anybody. And that's just Carl R. Ficks Jr. You can find me on LinkedIn. Some of my longer pieces are on LinkedIn. They're also on my website. The Friday Fixes I have not yet gotten on my website, but I'm in the process of doing that.
Great.
And these are, the shorter posts, which I've gotten some great feedback. It's just some folks find them inspirational. And again, just one little nugget of advice. That's just something that might help somebody get through a busy week.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's so much of what people are looking for these days, Carl. If we can just get a quick tip that can be helpful. And that's one of the things I really enjoy about your articles and your posts is you're really looking to be practical. So I want to encourage my listeners to go to Carl's website. We'll be sure and put this on the show notes page to learn more about what he has to offer, but also to pick up this free gift that he is providing to my audience, and definitely connect with him on LinkedIn. He's always striving to provide really valuable information in his posts. So, Carl, thank you so much for your commitment to help other people, get healthier, stay healthy, and live longer, more satisfying lives that feel good because they are moving.
Well, thank you, Meredith. Again, it's been a pleasure and a privilege to be with you, and it's just something I'm very passionate about, and I think it's helped me in my career. And I think coming out of this pandemic, this was a big deal, and people suffered on many levels. People have suffered loss, but also their health has suffered, whether it was purposeful or not. And as we emerge from this, I think it's even more important to become a little more resourceful and resilient to prepare for what comes down the pike next.
Yes.
So
and you, to me, are such a wise person for people to talk to, because from all your years of litigation, how to deal with these unexpected surprises that life throws at us. You had those so often in the courtroom, and I think you've got so many skills that could be beneficial to folks. So,
well, thank you so much. And yes, and that's not unique to the legal profession. There are curveballs that are thrown at everybody.
That's right.
You show up for work one day and it can go sideways fast. It's something you may not have anticipated, but it's how you react. And again, it's that courage to continue when something doesn't go your way. That's very important. And again, it ties into your book. I loved it where you mentioned that a community creates belief. And that is the belief that it's possible for you to achieve something. And the fitness community is very welcoming, and it will embrace people. And I think it's a helpful business tool. That's
great. Well, keep doing the good work you're doing, and through your interview here, hopefully we're helping to spread the word about what services you can provide to others.
Thank you. Thank you again, Meredith. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Carl. Thanks for tuning in to the Strong for Performance podcast. Now, head over to growstrongleaders.com/free and grab our ebook, Listen Like a Pro. You'll find out how to connect on a deeper level with the people who matter to you. And while you're there, check out our 2 books, Connect with Your Team and Peer Coaching Made Simple. Until next time, I'm Meredith Bell.